Or I guess this is as close as home is for now, anyway. Can't wait till our home's with Yeshua. Yeah, I got to watch Dave's message from last week, and I wish I'd been there. I had a couple of things I wanted to add to it. I hope that's okay. But, I had done some studying on this before, and, part of the thing that they use to push their uh, agenda, well, their theories on replacement theories is but anyway, is dispensationalism, and I've done some research on it, and in most of the Christian churches, that's what they use to say that there's a separation between Israel and the church. That's what they use to claim it, and that supposedly the church is taken over for Israel because Israel killed Yeshua is what they claim. But and I'll just kind of read what it is, and I mean it's like most of that stuff, most of the theologies. When if you just listen to a little bit of it, it almost kind of makes sense. But then they make that left turn at Albuquerque and everything goes crazy. This is from online. Dispensation in the Bible is a theological framework organizing history into distinct divinely appointed ages or stewardships, usually 7, through which Yahweh relates to humanity and administers his purpose. Key ideas include a literal interpretation of Scripture, a strict distinction between Israel and the church, and a pattern of human failure, judgment, and subsequent new arrangement. Actual definition is a specific, pretty well says the same thing, but they usually cut it into like 7 different things. They say there's seven dispensations. And they call the first one innocence, and that's Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and then there's conscience, which was post-fall to the flood, so after Adam and Eve fell to the flood. Human government, which is post-flood to Babel. Promise, from Abraham to Moses. And then they have the law, from Mosaic law to the death of Christ, which they claim the death of Yeshua is the end of the law. I mean, that's where a lot of these things that we see in these Christian churches comes from, is from this belief, and it's really pushed heavy. And grace, or the church age, which is they consider the current age from Pentecost to the rapture. Of course, they're all getting raptured, luckies. But and then the last one is the millennial reign, which we agree with that, the 1,000-year millennial reign. And one of their core distinctions, Israel versus the church, is a foundational belief is that Yahweh has 2 distinct plans for 2 distinct groups, national Israel and the church, which are never collapsed into one. And this is just the adversary separating. It's a tool that he's created to separate his people, the ones that should be gathered together in their love for him instead of us and them, And then, but I just kind of wanted to touch on that. If you happen to get to talking to somebody and they want to say, well, I was taught the law was done away with, and because that was all for Israel, and now we're the church, you kind of have a little bit of an idea of where it comes from. Yeah, Howard.
As you were speaking there, I was thinking, Lisa and I were talking about this last evening, pre-rapture theory.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's preached quite heavily on a lot of shows. But as I was thinking about this, I wonder, where is Daniel in the resurrection? where's Daniel going to be? Is he in the second resurrection or the first resurrection? I would guess the first resurrection.
Hmm.
So in order for the people who have a pre-rapture theory,
Yeah.
yeah, the pre-trib rapture. So Daniel, he says in the last chapter of 12, there, the last words is, but you go your way and lay there till the end, and you rest and I'll rise you up. Well, are they going to beat Daniel? No, because the dead rise first.
Mm-hmm.
His is at the end. So if theirs is at the beginning, there's something amiss here. Because Daniel was greatly beloved by the Messiah and the Father. And they're not going to beat him into the kingdom.
No.
But if they're saying theirs is at the beginning, his is at the end, somebody's reading the correct scripture.
Yeah.
David also.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's and what's interesting is, you know, you ask any of them, you know, what's their proof for a pre-trib rapture? Well, you get a little portion of a verse here and there. You don't ever get a complete thought from Scripture. You just get little parts and pieces.
There's only one word that even defines it, and they've twisted it. The name is harpazio. And it means but it's when where they get mixed up is where the Messiah comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, one guy now,
I'm sorry.
Like him, but he
Still
said
going.
3 different times he's coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. Lisa?
It's mostly where it says we're not appointed to wrath.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're mixing Yahweh's wrath with the tribulation.
Yeah.
It only says that we are to not how to put it, to get the wrath of Yahweh. And that's the last year. Take it from there.
They don't understand.
You know, they're thinking that the full wrath of Yahweh is the tribulation. It's where they get mixed up. You know.
His full wrath.
You know, his full wrath will be when heaven and the earth is destroyed and he recreates it. And hallelujah, we all get to live together without having to worry about arguing about things because he will set us straight. And that's to be a wonderful day.
Wait.
Yeah, I wanted to start in, that wasn't really my whole message, but it kind of had something to do with it. But I just thought I'd bring that up. And I wanted to go to Galatians 3. You know, I really like what Paul has to say about all of it. Of course, I always like what Paul has to say about everything. Once you learn his what he's trying to say, it can be confusing. Galatians 3, and we'll start in 24, page 1133. Which, you know, earlier on, before this, it's talking about, you know, how Torah was our guide and our, you know, but in 24, it says, therefore the Torah became our trainer unto Messiah in order to be declared right by belief. And after belief has come, we are no longer under a trainer. That does not mean we're no longer under Torah. It just means that we've been trained and the law still stands. We've just been trained in the law. For you are all sons of Elohim through belief in Messiah Yeshua. For as many of you as were immersed into Messiah have put on Messiah. There is not Yehudi nor Greek. There is not slave nor free. There is not male and female. For you are all one in Messiah Yeshua. And if you are of Messiah, then you are seed of Abraham and heirs according to the promise. And I mean, how much plainer can you get it, you know? And yet they want to do everything they can to separate and to drive wedges between us. And it's, it's a terrible thing, but
Satan does a good job.
well, he's been at it a long time. He's had a lot of practice, and he's got a lot of help. So, and that's, and I just kind of wanted to add that in with the going against the dispensational ideas that, there's some they call hyper dispensationalists. They don't even accept anything until Acts. They don't even accept the words of Yeshua because they claim that that's all for the Jews. Is like, well, you have Yehudim, but it's, they consider anybody that claims to be an Israelite to be a Jew, which, is a misunderstanding extreme another one, but we won't go into that. We'll go on into the message I had kind of prepared. And to start in it, we'll start in Deuteronomy 33. Yeah. 3:3. If I ever find it, I'll give you a page number. Let's see.
222.
Yep, 223.
23.
Yep, 223. And, it kind of was brought to me. I get a lot anymore on people asking me about generational curses and family curses and being, and it kind of goes along with this, the curses of the nations and how that, like the Ammonites and the Moabites, we know where they started from. They were the children of Lot with his two daughters. The Ammonites. Ben Amin was the father of the Ammonites. And okay, who's the other one for the Moabites?
You had Ammon, which is Jordan.
Yeah, but I mean the boy, what was his? I can't remember his name, but he was Moab, I guess.
Yeah.
Moab was
No,
his.
that was
The son of Lot, which through his daughter, his incestual son. I think everybody pretty well knows that story. So that wasn't the main part of what I was trying to bring out today, but I just trying to give a little background. But if we read here and start at verse 1, we'll find out that Ammonites were banned from the temple, and so were the Moabites. And this is the blessing with which Moshe, the man of Elohim, blessed the children of Israel before his death, and he said, I got the wrong one. Am I in the wrong one?
Yeah, it was Moab and Ammon.
Yeah, Moab and Ben Amin or something like that. Yeah, somehow I got in the wrong. Okay, I apologize. Got in the wrong one here. Well, oh boy. Let me just, in other words, what I was going to read, it was a short passage anyways. I'm sorry. I'm still getting over this, but the Ammonites and the Moabites were banned from the temple up to the 10th generation. They were not allowed to be within the temple. And, the Ammonites, they were, if we go to 1 Kings 11, I apologize. I thought I had this. I read that 3 times and wrote it down wrong. So it happens.
Mean about Ammon and Moab?
Well, what I was going to, it's where it tells that Moab and the Ammonites were both barred from the temple and barred from becoming coming into the Israelites up to the 10th generation. And it actually says they're banned forever in one until the end of the generation. Somehow I wrote down the wrong. I apologize. And I can't understand. I read it 3 times, but it happened.
Kings what?
1 Kings 11. Yeah. Let me get there and double check it and make sure though before we get carried away. Okay. That's what it was. I wrote down 33 and it was 23. My apologies. Thank you, Lisa. We'll go back to it. We can go back to it. It's not going to really make a big difference. But what I'm trying to set forth is, even though the Ammonites and the Moabites and a lot of them were banned from the temple, banned from becoming part of Israel, they still had a part to play in the whole history of things, in the whole workings of things. And, like everybody, I think, knows the story of Ruth. I think we've all familiar with Ruth. She was a Moabitess. But she declared to her mother-in-law, I give, your Elohim is my Elohim. Your people are my people. And she was accepted into it and was part of the bloodline to Yeshua. And he's even mentioned in Matthew 1 as part of that bloodline. So, and I look at it and I see, I look at the Ammonites and what they were and what they did. And I look at a lot of the things in the news today. And I see those parallels. And I see how easily it is for people to be lulled into it. I mean, the things that they're even claiming are going on, if they are, why is nobody being hung by their thumbnails? Or being, why has there been nothing done about it? Well, the point being that, they slowly feed this stuff to the people. And before you know it, it starts becoming accepted. Nobody done, everybody got away with it. So then the next thing, you have someone who has the same thoughts or the same ideas thinks, well, they got away with it, so I can get away with it. So I can do it too. And then the next thing you know, it just keeps corrupting a society, just like the Ammonites did to Israel. They battled against them, but yet, every time you turn around through the scriptures, they were accepting their ways. They turn a blind eye, but then, they would slowly just start accepting them. It would start with giving their sons to their daughters and bringing their daughters to their sons.
Just a tenth of any of this is true.
Yeah, but the point, there's several points I'm working on there, and I'll get around to them, but, the idea that I'm bringing forth is, there's not, as far as short of going out and shooting somebody yourself, which is not, if Yahweh commands, if it comes down, when it comes time for battle, Yahweh will arm us and he will call us to battle. Whenever Yeshua returns, if we're going to be fighting in that battle, he'll have us fighting in that battle. But when we see these horrors, these horrible things happening, we can't get so wrapped up in them that we let them take our joy. It's a horrible thing. Yes, there's nothing good about it, and we should be on our knees praying, begging for an end to it, to save this country. because this country's going downhill if this stuff does not stop. But it's been going on forever, pretty much. You know, it's not like this is just some idea they came up with and started doing. You know, they've even admitted they're worshiping Baal. They're worshiping and they're sacrificing to them. Okay.
Baal requires Moloch requires the body, and Baal requires the blood.
Yeah.
What they were saying that fitting all those things that they had come out with it. That's what the whole thing was about. That Moloch required the body, and Baal wanted the blood out of these people that they were sacrificing.
Okay, we're in. Are you done?
No, I just said sick.
Oh, yeah. 1 Kings 11, we'll start at 1. And sovereign Shlomo loved many foreign women in addition to the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women from the nations of whom Yahweh had said to the children of Israel, you do not go into them, and they do not go into you, for they shall certainly turn away your hearts after their mighty ones. Shlomo clung to these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. And it came to be when Shlomo was old that his wives turned away his heart after other mighty ones. And his heart was not perfect with Yahweh, his Elohim, as was the heart of his father David. And Shlomo went after Asheroth, the mighty one of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. You know. And so here we are, the Ammonites drawing the ruler of Israel, the king, the one that was so blessed. Thus Shlomo did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and did not follow Yahweh completely like his father David. Then Shlomo built a high place for Chemosh, the abominations of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. You know, and look, you know, he's building these on high places overlooking the temple. They can all be seen from the temple. And it all starts, like I say, it all started with acceptance. Did somebody want to say something? Oh, okay. I thought, okay. Well, praise you. But, well, we have to stay diligent. We have, I'm not saying that we shouldn't care about it or we shouldn't worry about it. Of course we should. But I think, until Yeshua returns, unless, if Yahweh places something in front of you that you can do something about, hallelujah, yeah, do something about it. But these things that the world is doing, the world's going to do, and it's horrible and it's terrible. But we can't let it steal our joy in Yahweh. I talked to, several people, and I do a lot of Facebook stuff, and I've got how many people, it's just on and crying and carrying on. And yeah, that's good. We should mourn these things. They're horrible things. They're not right. But we cannot let it distract us from what our called to mission is, what we're called to do. Just like Shlomo, he was given all that wisdom. And look what good it did him. There's a lot more to it than just knowing. Yeah, David.
Mention that the Amorite and the Moabite.
Yeah, I'm going to go back. I was going to go back to it. But yeah, what was you going to say? Go ahead. You was going to read it?
No, just that the main reason that they were not allowed wasn't so much how
No, it wasn't about that.
it was about the fact that they did not eat different bread and water.
Yeah.
And they helped bring about the curse of Balaam
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like, think about it. Like if you bring somebody into the faith and you help them overcome their sin, it always says you cover a multitude of sin. Try to put a stumbling block in front of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that's
Yeah, we can. Yep. Yes. Yes.
In the faith.
Yes. You know, and that was kind of where I was going in that. You know, it's, you know, they chose the direction they went. And that's kind of our deal. We choose every day. You know, I mean, they call it freedom of choice that Yahweh has given us. I don't call it freedom because it costs regardless which way you choose. There's always a cost to it. And there can be a great cost, but you know, that's the choice. Do we choose Yahweh or do we choose the way of the Ammonites or the way of the, you know, Moabites, or do we choose the way of Yahweh, our King and our ruler, our Creator, our the one that, you know, that gave up His one and only Son so that we could have the opportunity of salvation. He knew us and He loved us before the foundations of the earth. But yeah, like David was saying, you know, it's not because of the way in which the Ammonites were born. It's because of the choice they made, the direction they went as they went on. You know, as they came into being of a nation, they turned away from Yahweh. They turned to these false Elohim, and that's, you know, a lot of the problem today. You know, whenever I kind of, you know, in a way, if it had the right name on it, they'd really been a pretty good deal. You know, they used to have them little bracelets that Y or WWJD, but they ought to have been WWYD. What would Yeshua do? I mean, I think that's a good thought when we go to make decisions. How did Yeshua handle this situation? Because he is our perfect example. And yeah, let's go on to, we pretty well took care of what was going to be there in Deuteronomy. So let's go to Judges 11.
Page 266.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I'm sorry, you guys. Guys, I apologize. More, more at it today, but I just pray that Yahweh,
Slept too much.
yeah, Yahweh brings out the words He wants. That's all. That's the main thing. Yeah. And we'll start at verse 1.
Too much sleep.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I've been a little low on oxygen for a couple of days, and that kind of does not making excuses. Can't be me. I mean, shoot, you know. We all get a little off, have our off days, I think. But okay, we'll start in let's see. Okay, this in Judges 11, this is a story about Iftah, the Gileadite. He lived in Gilead, and the Israel was fighting the Ammonites. Well, Iftah was actually the daughter of a prostitute, or the son of a prostitute, and then was married. Then she married into an Israelite family, so his brothers just kind of run him off. And so he kind of got a gang of people together and became a known warrior, a fighter. And Israel was looking for help with Ammonites. So they went to him to try to get him to help them. And so he said, yeah, I'll help you, but you got to make me, if I help you and we succeed, you got to make me the leader of your army. And, where he lived, he was close to the Ammonites, was in close proximity because they had been run out of his family home. And we'll start at verse 30. And Iphtah made a vow to Yahweh and said, if you give the children of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be that whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall belong to Yahweh, and I shall offer it up as an ascending offering. Iphtah then passed on toward the children of Ammon to fight against them, and Yahweh gave them into his hand. And he struck them from Aroer as far as Minnith, 20 cities, and to Abel Keramim, and a very great slaughter. Thus the children of Ammon were humbled before the children of Israel. And Iphtah came to his house at Mitzvah, and saw his daughter coming out to meet him, with timbrels and dancing. Now except for her he had neither son nor daughter. And it came to be when he saw her that he tore his garment and said, O my daughter, you have brought me very low, and you are among those who trouble me. And I have given my word to Yahweh, and I am unable to turn back. There's why we don't be very careful. We say,
Words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart.
let your yes be yes and your no be no. But, when I read this, what it brings to my mind is, where does Yahweh ever ask for a human sacrifice? Other than with Abraham, and then he offered up a goat for that. I mean, if there is another one, I'm missing other than Yeshua, and Yeshua gave himself up. He wasn't given up by any. So is there anybody that knows of another one? I mean, I've studied and I haven't found another one. But that's where the Ammonites came in. That's where that idea of giving a human sacrifice come from. It was because the Ammonites were there and they did it. So it was slowly put into the mind that this could be that this could be done. And, Yeshua or Yahweh doesn't, he prefers obedience over sacrifice. So was he being obedient by sticking to his word, or was he being disobedient by sacrificing his daughter when Yahweh never asked him to? He's going against the Torah of Yahweh. He's accepting what the Ammonites accept as doable. And that's the way I see it. I mean, there may be some others that see it differently. But it goes on. And she said to him, my father, if you have given your word to Yahweh, do to me according to what has gone out of your mouth, because Yahweh has taken vengeance for you upon your enemies, the children of Ammon. So this girl has given herself up for her father's word. And she said to her father, let this be done for me. Let me alone for 2 new moons, and let me go and wander on the mountains, and bewail my maidenhood, my friends and I. Then he said, go. And he sent her away for 2 new moons. And she went with her friends, and bewailed her maidenhood on the mountains. And it came to be at the end of the 2 new moons that she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed. And she knew no man, and it became a statute in Israel that the daughters of Israel went every year for 4 days to lament the daughter of Iphtah, the Gileadite. You know, I mean, the daughter giving herself up, trying to save her own father. That's what I see in this story. Even though he was wrong, she was willing to give herself up for him. Let's go to 1 Samuel 15. You know, and it falls back to the command that Yahweh gave. Do not learn the ways of the people in the land that I'm giving you to possess, and do those for me, for him. Do not worship him in the manner that they worship their Elohim. Okay, 1 Samuel 15 and start 22. And Samuel said, does Yahweh delight in ascending offerings and slaughterings, as in obeying the voice of Yahweh? Look, to obey is better than a slaughtering. To heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and stubbornness is as wickedness and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of Yahweh, he also does reject you as sovereign. You know, and this is when Shaul went in to destroy him, and he left the king and and Samuel came up. You know, what's this bleating of sheep and blowing of cattle in my ears? Well, he said, I was going to save these to sacrifice to Yahweh. But Yahweh had told him, he said, no, don't save nothing, don't spare nothing, destroy everything, every one of them. You know, so this is another example of where obedience over sacrifice. You know, and when we look back at this dispensation, you know, they use that for an excuse to not be obedient. They don't have to be obedient because then they're trying to earn their salvation. That's a gift. But that's not what obedience is. That's not what obedience is about. Did you have something, Howard, or just got a cough?
I'm just
Okay.
listening how you stop.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about Ruth and Moabites and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it always struck me a little interesting that Joseph, when he was taken captive, and he ends up marrying the woman whose father was the head high priest in the city of On, which was a moon worshiper. But yet Ephraim and Manasseh, especially Ephraim, became very well-pleasing to Yahweh.
Yeah.
So, and they were able to mix like that too. So, to me, and like when Shaul went and seen or when Peter went and seen the centurion situation. So when that happened, he always tried to make it, there was no distinction. And that's, like you said, it's about obedience. So you can't worship other deities the way you worship me.
Mm-hmm.
Deuteronomy 12:28. You ever get a chance to read it?
Yeah.
Read it. Because he does that exact thing. And in Nehemiah 10, don't give your sons to marry the daughters of these because they'll lead them astray. So that's really what it was all about.
Yes.
You know, he was not a respecter of races like black, yellow, white, whatever. That doesn't matter. Who's obedient?
Yeah.
Who's going
Hallelujah.
to do what I tell you to do? And that's what he's interested in. Race of people.
Yeah.
Anybody can change.
Hallelujah. That's kind of where you know, with the meaning of what I've been trying to bring along. Howard explained it a lot better than I do.
Much like in the chapter you just read there in the beginning of it, it's talking about Amalek to destroy them. Well, we don't, if we don't listen to Yahweh, because they went in and killed the weak and the children and everything. But there's consequences down the road, and I know you've all heard me say this before, but Bin Laden was of the tribe of Amalek.
Yeah.
So look at the consequences from then to when we see it.
Yeah. So but the kind of the point of this message that I'm trying to bear out a lot of it is that, it's when we look at others too, we have to look at, we can't look at their nationality or their, we have to look at them as an individual. And it's sometimes it's hard to do. And because that's the way Yahweh looks at it. He looks at the individual heart and what that heart, longs for and what it goes for. It goes back to that choice. Are you going to make the choice and join in with the world, or are you going to make the choice to step out and follow Yahweh? And I pray that everybody would follow Yahweh. There's some that won't, but we still pray for them and we still do our part. Let's go to Nehemiah 13. I'm all over the place today.
So I just say that because that goes along with Nehemiah 10.
Yes, it does. Yep. Somebody get there before I do.
In the 830s.
Yeah. 840. Nehemiah 10. Or, 13. I'm sorry. I'm okay. Well, I apologize.
I was going to say 10.
Yeah. I'm easily distracted. My ADD is kicked in today, I guess. But, okay. On that day was read from the book of Moshe in the hearing of the people, and in it was found written that an Ammonite and Moabite should not come into the assembly of Elohim forever, because they had not met the children of Israel with bread and water, and hired Balaam against them to curse them, although our Elohim turned the curse into a blessing. And it came to be, when they had heard the Torah, that they separated all the mixed multitude from Israel. And before this, Eliashib, the priest, having authority over the storerooms of the house of our Elohim, was a relative of Tobiah. And he had prepared for him a large room where previously they had stored the grain offerings, the frankincense, and the utensils, and the tithes of grain, the new wine and the oil, which were commanded to be given to the Levites and the singers and the gatekeepers, and the contributions for the priests. But in all this, I was not in Jerusalem, for in the 32nd year of Artashshata, sovereign of Babel, I came to the sovereign, and after some days I asked leave from the sovereign to return. And I came to Jerusalem and learned of the evil which Eliashib had done to Tobiah in preparing a room for him in the court of the house of Elohim, which Tobiah was a king of Ammonites. And I came to Jerusalem and learned of the evil, of course, and it was very displeasing to me. Therefore I threw all the household goods of Tobiah out of the room, and I commanded them to cleanse the room and put back into them the utensils of the house of Elohim, with the grain offering and the frankincense. And I learned that the portions for the Levites had not been given them, for each of the Levites and the singers who did the work had gone back to his field. Then I contended with the deputy rulers and said, why is the house of Elohim forsaken? And I gathered them together and set them in their place. And all Yehudah brought the tithe of the grain and the new wine and oil to the storehouse. And I appointed as treasurers over the storehouse Shelemah the priest, and Zadok the scribe, and Pedaiah of the Levites, and at their hands was Hanan, son of Zakur, son of Mattaniah, for they were reckoned trustworthy, and it was on them to distribute to the brothers. Remember me, O Elohim, concerning this, and do not wipe out my loving commitment that I have done for the house of my Elohim and for its charges. In those days, I saw in Yehuda those treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves and loading donkeys with wine, grapes, and figs, and all kinds of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. So I warned them on the day they sold food. And men of sword dwelt there, bringing in fish and all kinds of goods, and sold them on the Sabbath to the children of Yehuda and in Jerusalem. Then I contended with the nobles of Yehuda and said to them, what evil matter is this that you are doing, profaning the Sabbath day? Did not your fathers do the same, so that our Elohim brought all this evil on us and on this city? Yet you bring added wrath on Israel by profaning the Sabbath. And it came to be, when the gates of Jerusalem were shaded before the Sabbath, that I commanded the doors to be shut, and commanded that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And I stationed some of my servants at the gates, so that no burdens would be brought in on the Sabbath day. And the merchants and sellers of all kinds of wares spent the night outside Jerusalem once or twice. And I warned them and said to them, why do you spend the night around the wall? If you do so again, I lay hands on you. From that time on, they came no more on the Sabbath. And I commanded the Levites that they should cleanse themselves, and they should come, guarding the gates, to set apart the Sabbath day. Remember me, O my Elohim, concerning this also, and pardon me according to the greatness of your loving commitment. So this was another thing. They came out of Babylon, and they knew the Sabbath, but they were still buying and selling on the Sabbath, and they were allowing foreigners to come in and sell on the Sabbath. So, it's so easy that these things get started. And it's so easy for us to be tricked into doing things that we normally wouldn't do. It's, the adversary, as we said earlier, he's been at it a long time. And he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve. And the last thing he wants is for each of us to make it to the destiny, I guess you could call it the destiny that Yahweh has set out for us, to the mission that we have. And that's his goal, is to keep us from that. And,
So you're saying the laying on of hands wasn't the healing there?
No, that wasn't for healing. I believe that was for, that was for what needs to happen to some of them other people now. But the laying on of hands needs, there's a time for it. Like I say, if Yahweh gives us the opportunity to do something, puts it before us, it's our responsibility to do it. I'm not saying go load your shotguns and head off over the hill or nothing, but like I say, if Yahweh, it's, and even minor things, even like helping somebody else. If Yahweh puts somebody in front of us to help, he doesn't say, just help the ones that this one or that one. He says if they need help, help them.
But also,
Yeah.
if the unborn child or
Yes,
trafficked child,
definitely.
the elderly person.
Yeah.
Not mentally.
Yes, definitely. We're supposed to, that's part of our requirements as children of Yahweh. It says that, pure religion is taking care of the elderly and the orphans. And that's, And it doesn't say just the orphans or the people you like or just the ones, it says all of them, or the elderly that you like. It says all of them. Then doesn't denote that they, even if they're Ammonites, they're still, and that's one of the ways that we show the love of Yahweh in us is by how we help others and how we treat others.
That deal I sent out, I don't know who all watched it, but over there doing that sacrifice of a little kid. I had to go back 3 times. Look at that to believe that wasn't AI. And yeah, he done that. He had that little baby. And it disappeared. That on a national TV show, and it was supposed to be entertainment. The sacrifice of a real, and he had a real trial.
Evil is very bold.
Evil is just, why is it, you see, it says that their thoughts and evil is continuous. That's all they think about. It's mockery.
Yeah, there we'll go. I'm just going to take us all over the place here. Go back to 2 Kings 14.
$97.
Another one down there. In the 2nd year of Joash, son of Joahaz, sovereign of Israel, Amatsayahu, son of Joash, sovereign of Yehuda, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name, Jehoiadim of Jerusalem. And he did that what was right. I got the wrong one again. Oh, I know. I see what it is. It's supposed to be 1 Kings 14. Oh, man.
First Kings.
Yeah, I started to say I'm okay, but it's questionable today. I apologize. Yeah, I was just looking at the wrong Kings.
367.
Yeah, I apologize. Man. Well, at the time of Abiah, the son of Jeroboam, became sick. And Jeroboam said to his wife, "Please arise and disguise yourself, so they do not know that you are the wife of Jeroboam. And go to Shiloh, and see Ahiah the prophet is there, who spoke to me of becoming sovereign over this people. And you shall take with you 10 loaves and cakes and a jar of honey, and go to him. Let him declare to you what becomes of the child." And Jeroboam's wife did so, and rose up and went to Shiloh, and came to the house of Ahiah. But Ahiah was unable to see, for his eyes had set because of his age. And Yahweh had said to Ahiyahu, "See, the wife of Jeroboam is coming to ask you a word about her son, for he is sick. Speak to her thus and thus, for it shall be, when she comes in, that she makes herself strange." And it came to be, when Ahiyahu heard the sound of her footsteps, and she came through the door, he said, "Come in, wife of Jeroboam. Why are you making yourself strange? And I have been sent to you with a hard word. Go say to Jeroboam, thus said Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, because I exalted you from among the people, and made you ruler over my people Israel, and tore the reign away from the house of David, and gave it to you, and you have not been as my servant David, who guarded my commands, and who followed me with all his heart, to do only what was right in my eyes. But you have done more evil than all who were before you. For you have gone and made for yourself other mighty ones, and molded images to provoke me, and have cast me behind your back. Therefore, see, I am bringing evil to the house of Jeroboam, and shall cut off from Jeroboam every male in Israel, whether shut up or left at large, and sweep away the remnant of the house of Jeroboam as one sweeps away dung until it is all gone. Those of Jeroboam who die in the city, the dogs do eat, and those who die in the field, the birds of the heavens do eat, for Yahweh has spoken it. And you arise, go to your house. When your feet enter the city, the child shall die. And all Israel shall mourn for him and bury him, for he is the only one of Jeroboam who shall come to the burial site, because in him there is found a good report toward Yahweh Elohim of Israel in the house of Jeroboam. And Yahweh shall rise up for himself a sovereign over Israel, who cuts off the house of Jeroboam this day and even now. And Yahweh shall strike Israel as a reed is shaken in the water, and shall pluck Israel from the good soil which he gave to their fathers, and shall scatter them beyond the river, because they made their Asherim provoking Yahweh. And he shall give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, who sinned, and who made Israel a sin. And the wife of Jeroboam rose up and went and came to Tartash. When she came to the threshold of the house, the child died. And they buried him, and all Israel lamented for him according to the word of Yahweh, which he spoke through his servant Ahiyahu the prophet. And the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, how he fought and how he reigned, see, they are written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel. And the days of Jeroboam reign was 22 years, so he slept with his fathers, and Nadab his son reigned in his place. Meanwhile, Rehoboam, son of Shalomo, reigned in Yehudah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he became sovereign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which Yahweh had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, the Ammonitess. I'll be darned, an Ammonite. And Yehudah did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins which they committed, more than all that their fathers had done. For they also built for themselves high places and pillars and Asherim on every high hill and under every green tree. And there were also cult prostitutes in the land, and they did according to all the abomination of the nations which Yahweh dispossessed before the children of Israel. And it came to be in the 5th year of sovereign Rehoboam that Shishak, sovereign of Mitzrayim, came up against Jerusalem. And he took away the treasuries of the house of Yahweh and the treasuries of the sovereign's house. He even took away all the shields of gold which Shalomo had made. And sovereign Rehoboam made shields of bronze to replace them, and entrusted them into the hands of the chiefs of the guard, who guarded the entrance of the sovereign's house. And it came to be, whenever the sovereign went into the house of Yahweh, the guards would bring them, then take them back into the guard room. And the rest of the acts of Rehoboam, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehudah? And there was fighting between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days. So Rehoboam slept with his fathers, and was buried with his father in the city of David. And the name of his mother was Naamah, the Ammonitess, and Abiam his son reigned in his place. So that just shows, that's the bloodline of Yeshua. And the mother was an Ammonite, though they were banned from including in Israel. And look how she turned her son. She even turned Shalomo, worship their own God. I'm not saying all women are bad. Don't get me wrong. Don't get the wrong idea what I'm saying. I don't want to get in trouble now. But no. But it's just an example of how easy it is for these other beliefs to creep in. It's just like that dispensationally. it's so, on outwardly, some of it, yeah, sure, I can agree. It will go through cycles. But those cycles don't change what Yahweh said or what Yahweh does. It doesn't change who his people are, the ones who he loves. He loves us all and has loved us all from before the foundations of the earth. But we have, it's just one of the things that as his children, we have to fight against. And the more we know about what we're fighting against, the easier it is to explain it to someone. And